days to serve on this committee when the Attorney General of the United States is to testify before the Judiciary Committee. And I do appreciate it. I have a series of subjects I'd like to examine, perhaps not in the depth that some of the others have. But I recall your testimony here roughly a year ago, and we had a discussion and an exchange about Arizona's SB 1070 law. And at that time, I had asked you if there was a provision in the Constitution that you believed it had violated, or if there was federal preemption that it had perhaps violated, or if there was any controlling case law that had perhaps crossed the line on it. At that point, you weren't prepared to respond to that. And I don't ask you to do that today, but to make this point that subsequent to that, then, of course, Justice filed a lawsuit against Arizona. And in reading that, I come across this, seemed to be something I hadn't encountered before, a careful balance that makes the case that Congress has established a careful balance between the various and sometimes competing immigration laws, and that it's the job of Justice and the other departments to maintain that careful balance, just to put that in summary.
I'm sorry, what kind of balance? I couldn't hear you.
A careful balance. And I've been involved in a lot of immigration debates, and I don't know that anyone has alleged they'd introduced legislation on immigration that was designed to achieve or enhance a careful balance. And so I just ask if that, I'll call it a legal theory, the careful balance theory, does that exist anywhere else in law that you know of?
Well, I mean, the positions that we have taken in that lawsuit have been upheld by both a district court and a court of appeals. The theories that we have brought, the theories that we have used, which I think are mainstream theories, and as I said, by two courts now have said that we are in the right.
And we're on this is the microphone. It's not Trent Franks' fault. The careful balance theory, however, regardless of the two courts' ruling, and we're on the way to the Supreme Court, I presume, do you know that careful balance theory exists anywhere else in law?
To the extent that we have used particular theories or particular phrases, I'm sure that the lawyers who filed those briefs did so carefully, did so with reference, with regard to...
Okay, Attorney General, just let the record show, I think it's a unique theory myself, and I'd be very interested if there was any other place that you could direct my reference. It seems to me that that's the one that's convenient for this case, and if it's out there anywhere, I'd like to know the answer to that. But let me move on, and that is, and I didn't ask you the question on whether you'd read SB 1070, but we have another piece of legislation out there now that's been passed by one of the states. It's called HB 116. That's Utah's legislation that I will just contend, for the sake of simplified vernacular, creates Utah as a sanctuary state. Have you examined and have you read HB 116?
I have read the Utah law.
And have you made a determination on whether to bring suit against Utah?
No, we've not. As I indicated, I think in a prior question, what we typically do is try to interact with the state and try to work our way through any disagreements we might have without bringing suit. The statute doesn't go into effect until 2013, I understand. We are prepared to bring suit if that is necessary, but that is a decision we would make in about a year or so.
Let me just then make the point that if Arizona is preempted, then Utah establishing a sanctuary state certainly is preempted. I make that point between us here today. And move on also, you have reviewed since your last testimony before this committee the sworn testimony of Christian Adams and Chris Coates before the Civil Rights Commission under oath, when they had made the point that the Justice Department has a racial component to the equation of whether they will enforce discrimination if it disadvantages a minority. Have you reviewed that testimony, and do you accept it as truthful, their sworn testimony?
I have not reviewed the testimony, but that their characterization that is totally inaccurate.
And I just ask for your own benefit, have you then looked into the department and evaluated, done a further investigation though? I mean, you disagree with that, but have you actually done an extra investigation within your own department to satisfy yourself? Or was that your judgment a year ago, and is that just simply your same judgment today?
No, if you look at the assertions that they have made, it seems to me that they are inconsistent with the findings that the Office of Professional Responsibility has made, looking at the whole Black Panthers matter, where the OPR made the determination that politics, race did not play a part both in the filing of the case or in the decision as to how the case was disposed of, which it seems to me is inconsistent with what they are claiming.
And Mr. Attorney General, I'd point out that I believe that Thomas Perez was less than truthful with this committee when he testified that they'd achieved the highest penalty evolved under the law. And I just ask unanimous consent for an additional minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for an additional 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also wanted to bring up the issue of Pigford Farms. And can you cite for this committee the authorization that you had or may believe you had to open up negotiations for a second round of Pigford Farms we refer to as Pigford 2?
The Attorney General has the ability to settle cases. That is part of what that's, I think, an inherent part of what the Attorney General's power.
Would you cite the 2008 Farm Bill as the authorization for that specifically to conclude Pigford 2?
I'm not sure I quite understand your question in terms of...
Well, I can understand why. And then, so I'd ask, did you negotiate with John Boyd on a settlement for Pigford 2?
Did I?
Yes. Or did anyone from your office authorized by you do so?
I'm not sure I know who Mr. Boyd is.
That's instructive to me, and I won't push my time limits any further. Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. King.